So in the very early days, I built this shrine here, which signifies you standing on the path, which is the Sangha, and you have the Dhamma and the Buddha. And so this is the mock-up that I made for the ordination shrine here at Abhayagiri, which then also was kind of the template for Birkin's shrine. And this saying here always impressed me, of Ajahn Chah's. This is probably third or fourth generation of that being painted, as it beautifully keeps deteriorating and needing to be replaced. So continuing to refurbish and re-strengthen our practice. Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha on the path. So 7 years ago, 8 years ago, this October, was the big fire that happened here at Abhayagiri. And I was living in this cabin right here. And the night before the fires, it was the first night it was really cold, and I always slept with my windows open. So just as I was going to bed, I smelled smoke, and I came out and there was no fires. And so I went to bed. The next night, the night of the fires, I had just started a brand new icon painting, so I was up till at least 1 o'clock at night, and just as I was going to bed, I noticed the smell of smoke again. But I just assumed it was just the atmosphere pushing the smoke down with the cold air. And then an hour later, I get this very gentle knock on these stairs right here. One of the monks telling me, "There's a fire, Jodi Paulo, are you awake? We need to gather at the Monks Utility Building." And so I folded up my sleeping bag and the sleeping mat and got a few things in order. Took probably 10 minutes, and I opened the door to come down, and that ridge right behind me there, the entire sky was red, and it was probably off in the distance still at that point, not too far, but the kind of the air was shimmering, and maybe I did see flames, but all on this ridge here, and see very close. And when that happened, my very first thought was, that could be my death. Abhayagiri was evacuated from this property due to a wildfire, and unfortunately several of our neighbors died in that fire. But you can see kind of right up here is a dead tree, and all along the ridge, dead trees. So kind of about at least 50%, maybe 75% all the way around the monastery. The fire came up to the monastery, and there's a trail that goes through the back here called the Loop Trail. And the firefighters were telling me that when it came over the ridge, it burnt down to the Loop Trail. And that was kind of normal behavior at nighttime, the fire's coming down. And then it reached that trail, and the fire wouldn't cross the trail. And then it reversed itself back out of the monastery. He said it was just a miraculous event. And when I first came out here the day we got back, in this particular spot there was a marker which I think was from a firefighter, first responder, who was directing a lot of the work there. So down here they did a fire break through the forest, and you can't see it now, it's all kind of grown back. But actually the fire did come over the ridge, and over here it came down, almost down to the monastery down there. So it's really interesting to see how the monastery has rebounded in terms of property damage. So the fire came down to here, and this was one of the only really structures that got severely damaged. This bridge, you see the right hand side, so we put in a new support underneath and just rebuilt the bridge, left the burn mark as a reminder. And you hear them doing chainsawing work, probably for fire prevention for the future. So this part of the forest right here hasn't been thinned. This is kind of near the top of the monastery. And you see just how thickly vegetated the property is here. And this is pretty much like what all of Abhayagiri looked like before the fires. And then on the side of the monastery that did burn, it kind of burnt all of this lower vegetation down. The community has been, for the last 7 years, been extremely diligent with repairing the damages to the land, but then also clearing out all of the underbrush around any of the structures we have, just to protect the structures and to make it easier for first responders. Living in a monastery this large, 250 acres on the side of a mountain, is a lot of work. It's beautiful that there's a community that wants to preserve this place as well as they can. Here's a perfect example. This part of the forest right here would have looked like that back there. Yeah, there's a perspective. Huge truck. Hello, I'm Ajahn Jyotipalo. Welcome to Sauntering into the Redwoods. This is an amazing tree right here. It actually has 2 redwood trees growing out of the redwood tree. Let's see if I can get a better view of this. You can see the one tree there, another tree there. Here's Michael and my meal location for the day. We're in Richardson Grove State Park. Redwood trees, all to ourselves. What do you think, Michael?
I think Ajahn Jyotipalo is taking me to a very beautiful place. Thank you.